The Fall of Rome, Roma Metha, Nathan Durkin, Jack Shaw Wessler, and Vicente Lunate. Throughout much of known history, numerous empires have shaped the evolution of art, culture, military craft, economics, and politics across almost every continent. However, even though at their heights, each of these empires sustained wide territories and considerable influence, each of these empires is also no longer considered to be extant in the modern day. A political state as powerful and expansive as an empire does not simply deconstruct overnight. The fall of an empire is a systematic process that progresses over decades or centuries. When understanding the degeneration and/or termination of an empire, it is important to recognize that the process is not always defined by distinct time markers, and the process is always precedented and/or exacerbated by previous existing circumstances. For an empire to collapse or degenerate, the systems that support said empire must each weaken individually. Often, these systems weaken each other as well. For example, the trade routes established by an empire are a key component of that empire's access to resources and communication with other political states and/or lands. If those trade routes are cut or obstructed, then that empire's access to resources is also obstructed. Consequentially, the economical and market systems of that empire are also harmed because desired products aren't available, or the materials necessary to craft another resource are also no longer available. This phenomenon can lead to a ripple effect. If the empire relies on trade routes to access metals like iron, then when those trade routes are no longer viable, the empire's iron treasuries become deprived. As a chain result of the weakened iron trade system, that empire can blacksmith less armor and less weapons, thus harming that empire's military prowess as well. A weaker military would expose an empire's cities and territories to outside invasion or raiding, etc. The driving force for the degeneration of systems varies and may be environmental, social, political, or economic, but most often is a combination thereof. Frequent and/or significant wars and/or frequent or significant inside rebellions are the most distinct culprits, although each of these forms of unrest is caused and perpetuated by other precedents: territorial disputes within neighboring states, laws perceived as strict or unfair by the population, previously existing animosity between the government and the people, or any combination of factors like these.
Now that we have heard how empires rise and fall, we can begin to single out why specifically the Roman Empire has fallen, or if it even fell at all. The reason I say this is because many historians debate this topic and what various dates the Roman Empire may have fallen. There are two general paradigms that people side with. There is the decline and fall point of view, and there is the transformative point of view. Some people believe that the Roman Empire went through a decline and eventually fell. The people who say that it declined and fell argue that the Roman Empire was under numerous pressures at the time. Among these pressures were the inflation of the economy, the wrath of the army, the pressure of northern barbarians, the loss of expansion leading to lack of profit from conquest, and their vast amount of land that could not be controlled properly. These problems also feed off of each other. For example, the inflation of the economy happens so fast that the salaries of workers can't keep up. Because of this, the army gets mad at the emperor. The emperor can now either inflate the economy to pay the soldiers, which loops back around, or they can fire the army, which may result in a revolt, and then hire barbarians to be in the army, which is another entity stretching Rome's control, and then, if the barbarians aren't happy, they may revolt and cause more hardships. Many historians believe that cycles like these are what caused the fall of the Roman Empire. Other historians, however, believe in a transformative point of view. They believe that the Roman Empire became something that was similar to the Roman Empire, and while not exactly the same, not too different either. They make points that the people in the area referred to themselves as the Romans, and they also mention the Byzantine Empire, which is the eastern half of the Roman Empire after it was split.
There are many historical factors that contributed to the decline or fall of Western Rome. Among these were several factors relating to Germanic tribes. Many of these tribes had been hired by Roman emperors to serve in their military in order to avoid the rampant corruption inside Rome's army. This technique became problematic for Romans in the long term, as disputes over pay caused several of these tribes to rebel and attempt to take control of Rome. These tribes would also take control of portions of the Roman Empire, usually after sacking Rome. This wouldn't have been a problem if Rome had a strong emperor to control its remaining armies. However, Rome had had a series of weak emperors from 2000 AD onwards. Adding to the downward spiral of weak emperors and outsiders seizing control, Rome was suffering from serious economic troubles. Part of their troubles lay in the usage of the Silk Road, as Rome was trading precious metals for gold and silver, for temporary materials that wouldn't contribute to economic growth, such as tea and silk. As such, the emperor began infusing the usually silver coins of the land with less valuable metals. This caused these new coins to become less valued, and thus the price of everything went up, causing inflation. The army, tired of increased prices, would force the emperor to raise their salaries. This forced the emperor to raise taxes, which made peasants even poorer. The emperor Diocletian, also the cause of many of these changes, split the wealthier eastern half from the more vulnerable western half of Rome. This split led to the two halves completely separating, resulting in a much poorer and undefended western half of Rome. All of these factors combined and led to Rome controlling less and less of its empire. Eventually, all of these factors resulted in Rome almost unrecognizable from itself in just a few hundred years before.
As stated previously, Germanic tribes were also trouble for Rome. Many barbaric tribes were hired by the Roman government to serve in the army. The people of these tribes would serve in the army and would get paid for their services. However, many times the people were not pleased with how much payment they were getting and would get angry. This would cause them to stop working and in some cases revolt. In order to maintain the peace, the Roman government would have to pay the tribes off and give them what they wanted. This was a problem because every time the government paid the Germanic tribes off, they would not only have to pay, but they would lose money that they needed for themselves. Another factor would be the constant infiltrations done by the Germanic tribesmen. Many times this was because they wanted to be recognized by the Roman government and have position in the army. In some cases of infiltration, the city of Rome would get sacked. In this event, Rome would not only lose riches, but in some cases have to rebuild. Also adding to the problem was that after each infiltration, the emperor lost power. This was because the power of the emperor was already limited in this weakened state of Rome, and the Germanic tribes were much more powerful. Emperors were often murdered during this time of unrest as well, which is why the emperor chain moves much quicker. In 746 AD, the Visigoths sacked the city of Rome, resulting in the death of the Emperor Romulus. This was what most will say was the fall of Rome. However, during this time, the Eastern Empire, now known as the Byzantine Empire, was flourishing during this time, and would last until the 1400s. Therefore, this was the end of the Western Empire. We, however, take points from both the decline and fall and transformative views on the subject. On one hand, it is true that there were a lot of things that changed in the Roman Empire at the time, making it unrecognizable as the Roman Empire anymore. So, we believe that the Western Empire did fall. However, the Byzantine Empire did not fall and prospered for another 1,000 years. Since this empire was technically the Roman Empire and is under the rule of those who see themselves as Roman, we believe that the Roman Empire lived and died with them, even though they did not have control of Rome.